I sighed. It wasn't a dramatic sigh, just one pulled straight from the gut of a man who's too tired to be furious anymore. You know what's wild? I used to think if you ever cheated, it would be because I wasn't good enough that I failed you. But the truth is, you sabotaged something because you were afraid of losing it. And instead of telling me that, you torched the whole thing and blamed the fire on boredom. She was crying now, not sobbing, quiet, controlled tears. The kind that don't ask for pity. The kind that just happen when your body is too tired to keep secrets. I wish you'd yelled, she whispered. Yelling would have meant I thought we had something worth fighting for, I replied. I don't even know if I believe that anymore. Now the room went quiet again, the kind of silence that feels almost sacred. I looked at her, this woman I once dreamed with, and I tried, truly tried, to find the version of us that once existed in a crowded booth. Hands touching under the table, talking about dumb stuff like paint colors and road trips we'd never take. But all I could see now was the chasm between us. Still, something made me ask, did you come here for closure or something else? She looked up, eyes rimmed red. I don't know. Maybe both. And Cale? I said. He's gone, she said quickly. I ended it before the restaurant. I raised an eyebrow. But you were still texting him over dinner. She hesitated. Habit, right? Another silent stretch between us. But this one felt different. Not empty, not accusing, just honest. I don't expect you to forgive me, she finally said. That's good, I answered, because I haven't even started forgiving myself yet. She looked confused. For what? For letting it get this far. For seeing the signs and ignoring them, thinking if I just stayed quiet long enough, you'd love me louder. That's... When she reached for the book again, the one with my half-written note inside, she opened to the back page and slid something out, another note hers. It was dated 2 months ago. You still see me. I don't deserve that, but I'm trying to see you back. I stared at the handwriting. It was hers. Same loops, same uneven spacing. You wrote this? She nodded. I didn't think I'd ever show you, but I did read the book. I read the poem. And it killed me because you were still fighting for us even when I was giving you reasons not to. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't sure there was anything left to say, but something in me softened. Not because she deserved it, maybe just because I needed it. Maybe because in the wreckage of everything, I saw 2 people standing there. Not as enemies, but as failures. And weirdly, failures are easier to talk to than villains. So I said the only thing that made sense. I don't know where we go from here, she answered. Then maybe we don't go anywhere yet. Maybe we just sit in it. So we did. 2 people on the edge of a life that used to be ours, finally sitting in the truth, no longer pretending it was. Still warm the next morning, I woke up to birds and aching silence. Not the heavy kind from earlier that week. This one was strange. It was like the air had thinned between us, but not in a peaceful way. More like we'd both confessed just enough to be empty, but not enough to be free. Melody was already up. Made coffee, left a mug on the table like a peace offering, then sat across from me without speaking. Her face was calm, but it felt off. Not relaxed, just restrained. And the moment I looked her in the eyes, I knew there was more. She hadn't told me everything. And I hated that I could tell. After everything, after the dinner, after the videos, the text messages, the confrontation at the cabin, the crying, the confessions of An that wasn't the whole truth, she avoided my gaze and stared out the window like she was expecting the trees to swallow her. Say it, I said quietly. Whatever it is, just say it. Her fingers clenched around her mug. She didn't look at me when she said it. I lied about when it started. I blinked. What do you mean? She swallowed hard. It wasn't just messages the last few months. It didn't start when I told you it did. I wanted to protect you from the timeline, but that's not fair. The first time I saw him outside of work was almost a year ago. The cup in my hand stopped halfway to my lips. I set it down slowly. A year. She nodded. You were sick. Remember that week you had the stomach flu and stayed home from work? I did. It hit hard. For days in bed, barely eating, I remember thinking, How quiet she was that week, how absent. I thought she was just avoiding catching what I had. But apparently, she wasn't worried about viruses. She was busy starting an affair. I leaned back in my chair. So when I was lying in bed, dehydrated. And hallucinating? You were what? With him? Yes, she whispered. Once I told myself it didn't count because it was just talking, but it wasn't. Not really. We had drinks. He kissed me. I let him. That hit harder than anything else. Not because of the physical act, not because of Kale, but because I remembered. Lying there in the dark, sweating through my shirt, texting her and asking if she could bring me crackers. She said she was stuck at work, said she had a long meeting, said she loved me and hoped I felt better. And the whole time, she was letting another man's lips rewrite my marriage. I stood up, not violently, not with a scream. Just stood like I couldn't bear the weight of sitting near her. She looked terrified. Please don't walk away. I'm not walking, I said. I'm just trying to find a place in this house where I can breathe without feeling like a ghost. She stood too, reaching for me. I didn't know what I was doing. Yes, you did. I turned. You just didn't care until now. I cared, she said, her voice cracking. I cared so much I buried it so deep I convinced myself it wasn't real. That sentence, that logic, that insane backward apology, that was the moment I realized she wasn't evil. She wasn't cruel. She was just weak. And weakness in love is often worse than malice because it hides under the skin. It poisons slowly. I stared at her. So how much of our marriage was real? How much of the last year was you pretending you hadn't already left me? She didn't answer. I stepped away, out the front door, into the cold wind that hit me like a slap. I stood on the porch, trying to pull air into my lungs, trying to make sense of the damage. That's when my phone buzzed. I pulled it out, half expecting another desperate message from her, but it wasn't from Melody. It was from Kale. I froze. You think you know everything? You don't. Ask her about the cabin trip in January. That was it. No context, no explanation. It's just that. And suddenly, the world spun again. Another lie, another timeline to unravel. I walked back inside, slowly, deliberately. She looked up from the couch, tear-streaked. I held up my phone. The cabin trip. In January. What was it really? Her eyes widened. She went completely still. And in that moment, I knew whatever I thought the bottom was. We hadn't even touched it yet. She didn't speak for a long time. She sat there on the edge of the couch like the floor might give out beneath her. I stood with the phone still in my hand, Kale's message burning on the screen, waiting for her to say anything. Even a breath would have been something. But she looked cornered, like the kind of animal that knows it can't run anymore, and now it just waits to be hit. The January cabin trip, I said again, slower. You told me it was a team retreat. You even made me help pack your car. Kissed you goodbye that morning and you said you'd be back Sunday. She nodded. So what really happened? Up at me, and the way her face changed. Not guilty, not defensive. Just absolutely broken eye. Knew whatever she was about to say would hurt worse than anything I'd heard so far. I wasn't alone, she said softly. Obviously, I snapped. Kale. Was there no? She said. Not just Kale. I froze. My thoughts stalled. Not just Kale? She wrung her hands like she was trying to tear something invisible off her skin. Kale brought someone. I didn't know until I got there. It was supposed to just be him and me, but he brought a woman. A friend of his. He said it was casual. Wasn't supposed to stay the night, but she did. I narrowed my eyes. Why would he bring someone if he was meeting you? That doesn't even make sense. She nodded miserably. Because I wasn't the only one there. It was not just the betrayal, not just the deceit, but the cruel irony. She wasn't even special to the man she blew our life apart for. You were sharing him? I asked, stunned. Not like that. Not in some open relationship way. I didn't know. He played us both. She thought I was his ex. I thought she was just a friend. But we both found out the truth that weekend. And you stayed? I tried to leave, she said quickly. But the roads were icy. It was dark. Kale said I was overreacting. Told me I was being dramatic. He even laughed. You still stayed. She nodded. We fought. He got angry. I slept in a separate room. I didn't speak to him the whole next day. But I didn't come home either. I didn't call you. I didn't even text you. You sent me a selfie, I said, the memory slamming into me. In front of a fake fireplace, smiling, I remember. You said, love you, miss you, see you soon. She nodded again, quieter this time. I took it before the fight, before I found out. The lights were still on at 4 a.m. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the faint smell of perfume in the hallway. Not the silence where the sound of keys usually clattered. Not even the fact that her phone was still off. Just that small, glowing detail. Every single lamp in the living room was still on. She always turned them off before bed. Always like a ritual. One click, then two. Then the floor lamp with the broken switch you have to jiggle. But not that night, because that night she never came home. It started with a SMERK earlier that evening around 7:00 p.m. She was getting ready, dressed like she was about to walk onto a magazine cover. Tight navy skirt, heels that clapped confidently down the stairs, and a necklace I hadn't seen in years, I asked. Big night? She smiled without showing teeth. Just a little party. You wouldn't know anyone there. Something about how she said that you wouldn't know anyone there felt like a slap dressed in velvet. I wanted to ask who was hosting it, but the last time I questioned her plans, she accused me of being emotionally suffocating. So I nodded, watched her grab the wine-colored clutch she only used for special occasions, and shut the door behind her. No goodbye, just perfume, trailing through the hallway in silence. By midnight, I was refreshing her location every few minutes like a broken reflex. I told myself I trusted her, that it was probably a girls' night, that I was being paranoid again. But at 2:31 a.m., the address on my screen hadn't changed for 3 hours. The address, her ex's house, not just an old flame, the ex, the one she swore she hadn't talked to in over a year. The one she once called a mistake in human form. But mistakes don't host parties, do they? By the time the clock hit 4:07 a.m., I knew she wasn't coming back that night. So I got up. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I didn't send 37 unanswered texts. I just stood in that brightly lit living room and smiled because I had a plan I never thought I'd use. A decision I had saved like a secret weapon. Quiet, cruel, and completely within my right. She didn't know it yet, but when she walked through that door the next morning, everything she thought was hers would already be gone. By 7:42 a.m., I had already made the coffee, turned off the lamp she forgot, packed a duffel bag that wasn't mine. Hers, but not with what you'd expect. Not clothes, not makeup, not souvenirs from our vacations. Just one envelope. Inside, a printed email, a receipt, and a note with 10 simple words. You chose a party. I chose peace. Goodbye, Callie. I didn't scream when I wrote it. I didn't second guess it. I just pressed print, folded it, and slid it into the side pocket like it was just a forgotten receipt. Because after last night, I finally understood something I'd refused to admit for years. I wasn't her partner. I was her placeholder. Placeholders are easy to replace, but harder to forget when they decide to walk away first. At exactly 8:04 a.m., I heard the lock click. Her key still worked. I hadn't changed that part, yet the door creaked open. I was sitting on the couch, with my legs crossed like I hadn't just stayed up all night, hollowed out and heartburned. She stepped inside like she was returning from yoga class, not a night at her ex's house. Sunglasses still on, hair messy, but in that effortless kind of way she used to spend 20 minutes faking. Then she saw me. She froze, not out of guilt. No, at least not the kind you'd expect. It was confusion. Her eyes scanned the living room. Something was off, and she knew it immediately. The walls were bare, the shelf above the TV empty. No photos, no wedding album, no framed picture of us on the pier. Her voice cracked just slightly when she said, "What are you doing?" I smiled. "Enjoy your party." She didn't respond. Just set her purse down a little too slowly, like buying herself a few seconds. "I told you I was going. You didn't say not to." That was the game she always played. Technicalities. She didn't lie. She just curated the truth like a playlist, skipping tracks she knew I couldn't handle. "I know," I said. You didn't break any rules. You just broke us. That's when she saw the duffel. And for the first time that morning, her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I stood up and handed it to her. No drama, no anger, it's just finality. I left your name on the lease. Don't worry, I'm not petty, but you'll find some things missing. Mostly mine, a few others too. What the hell is that supposed to mean? She asked. Suddenly sharp, I nodded to the note. Read it? Read it when you're alone. It'll make more sense. She didn't move, so I added, by the way, the bracelet. Nice touch. But next time, don't wear another man's gift when walking back into a home you no longer. Respect, that one landed. Her face fell, not because she cared about me, but because she realized the image she had spent so long crafting had shattered. She couldn't control the narrative anymore. And I wasn't going to help her fix it. I walked past her down the stairs. Out the door, no suitcase, no luggage, because I didn't need to take anything with me. She'd already thrown it all away. I thought walking away would feel like freedom. I imagined some dramatic swell of peace rushing in to fill the void she left behind. But the truth is, when I shut the door behind me that morning, it didn't feel like a clean break. It felt like peeling off a part of myself with no anesthesia. Still, I didn't go back. Instead, I drove for hours. No destination, no music, just the hollow hum of tires against pavement and the occasional rattle of my cup holder like it was mocking me. At some point, I parked in the lot of a closed-down strip mall and sat there with the windows cracked, breathing in the kind of air that feels like it doesn't want you breathing it. I didn't cry, not because I wasn't broken, but because I'd already done that the night before, staring at her location, realizing she was never really mine to begin with. Crying again felt like trying to water a dead plant. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Callie, we need to talk. Please come back. I didn't respond. 10 minutes later, Callie, why are you doing this? At least talk to me. Still nothing.
Hours, really? So, that's it?
Yeah. After everything we've built, you're just disappearing. Funny choice of words. We've built. You built a fantasy. I've built the foundation. You walked on red carpets. I swept the sawdust. The next day, I got a call from her sister, Laurel. She always liked me more than she liked her own blood, which was saying something. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. She told me everything, Laurel said. I braced for a defense, but what came next made me sit upright. She didn't come home that night just to make you jealous. That was the whole point of the party. Ronan's party. She wanted to see if she still had it. If you'd react, if you'd chase her, chase her. I didn't say anything, but Laurel kept going. She said, you've been distant. You weren't yourself anymore. Like you stopped trying. So she wanted to wake you up. I finally spoke. So disappearing. Overnight with her ex was some kind of emotional CPR. There was silence on the line, and I'm not defending her, lol. I'm telling you, she regrets it deeply. That would have mattered once. It really would have, but I couldn't shake the fact that I had become a test, a chess piece in her little drama. She weaponized my silence, I said quietly. So now I'm showing her what silence really looks like. 2 days passed before I heard her voice again. She left a voicemail. I didn't answer, but I listened. And I'll never forget what she said. Lol, I messed up. Okay, but I didn't cheat on you. I swear to God nothing happened. It wasn't about Ronan. It was about me. I felt invisible, and I needed to feel wanted. And that was wrong. But I didn't think you'd actually leave. I thought you'd yell, or guilt me, or get angry, but not this. Not nothing. There was a pause. And then her voice cracked in a way I hadn't heard in years. I can't live in this house without your voice in it. But here's the thing. She already had for months. She just didn't notice until I stopped making noise. 3 days. That's how long it took before she stopped pretending I'd come home on my own. The first day was all calls and texts, frantic, desperate, spinning. Her messages bounced between anger and sadness like a metronome that couldn't find rhythm. One moment it was, how could you do this to me? The next it was, please, I just want to see you. The second day she went quiet. Not completely, but quiet enough that it felt strategic, like she was trying to guilt me through the silence. Maybe she thought I'd start second-guessing myself, that I'd miss the sound of her voice, or the way she used to hum while brushing her teeth. I didn't. I missed the version of her that used to sit beside me in the car and squeeze my hand at red lights for no reason. I missed the girl who used to tape movie ticket stubs into a scrapbook and cry at commercials about dogs. But that girl was gone, and the woman who had taken her place. She only looked like her from far away. But it was day 3 when she broke character. That morning, a knock came at the door of the guest house I was renting from a retired Marine, who barely spoke. I opened it to find a delivery guy holding a ridiculous arrangement of white tulips and lavender. There was a card. It read, "Come home. Let's start over." Callie, I didn't know whether to laugh or burn it. She never liked. Tulip said they reminded her of hospital lobbies. I wondered if she had picked them for herself, or if Ronan had bought them for some girl once. And now the image just stuck in her head. I left the flowers outside. That night, it rained. By morning, they were a soggy mess of petals and ruined. Paper, kind of poetic, honestly. But then, something strange happened. Around 1,000 p.m., I got a text from my bank. It was an alert about a withdrawal attempt on our joint savings, except I had already transferred my half out the day I left. Quietly, no drama, just clean division. So I called, and the voice on the other end told me something that chilled me deeper than her affair ever could. "Sir, the request to transfer all remaining funds was flagged because it didn't match previous patterns. The person claimed you were deceased and the account needed to be closed." I almost dropped the phone. She hadn't just wanted to win me back. She was preparing for a version of life where I didn't even exist. I stared at the rain through the cracked blinds, thinking back to all the times I had defended her. Every time someone said she was manipulative. Every time I said she was just misunderstood. Every moment I believed that deep down, she was still the person who once wrote me love notes in the margins of crossword puzzles. But this was war. She had no idea I had already started fighting back. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Something inside me said, wait, no. Not out of fear, but out of strategy. Callie thought I was emotionally slow, fragile, predictable. That was her advantage. She never expected me to sit quietly in the shadows and let her show her real hand. And that's exactly what she was starting to do that same day after the bank call. I logged into our shared laptop. Stupidly, she hadn't changed the password. She probably assumed I was too soft to dig, but I wasn't digging. I was excavating. There, tucked in a drafts folder, she must have thought I wouldn't notice, was an email she never sent. The subject line was "Next Phase." I opened it. It was addressed to Ronan, and what I read turned my stomach. "I don't know how much longer I can play devoted wife. He left like you said he would. I didn't even have to lie. You were right." He folded. Like a card. "He hasn't even blocked me yet, lol. You said once he was like a wounded deer. You were right again. I'm going to start nudging for the house next. We'll probably give it up just to keep peace. After that, we're free officially." I stopped breathing. Not because she'd said something cruel, but because every word of it was intentional, strategic, cold. All those calls, all those texts, the voicemail where her voice cracked. A performance, and I'd been audience to it all, but I didn't delete. The email. I screenshotted it, saved it 3 times in 3 places. Cloud storage, flash drive, and a printed copy in my glove compartment. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I emailed Ronan, not to threaten, to invite. "Hi, Ronan. I know she told you I'm out of the picture, but I'm still here. And I've read what you've written together. Just a heads up. I'm not folding. You two enjoy your games. I'll be watching quietly." I never expected a reply, but he did. 2 hours later, "Dude, she said you were cool with an open marriage." I didn't. "No, she was lying to you. I'm out." I blinked at the screen. Is that regret, denial, damage control? Whatever it was, it didn't matter because I now understood what they'd both underestimated. I might be a whiny husband, but I'm not stupid. Nothing terrifies a manipulator more than the moment the quiet one stops playing dumb. I slept better than I had in months. No cold sweats, no twisting gut, no dreams where I'm begging for her attention like a stray dog scratching at the back door. In the morning I did something she'd never expect. I returned home not to stay, to set the final piece in motion. She wasn't there when I arrived, but her scent was that sweet, artificial vanilla she always wore. I walked through the house. Slowly, each room, a memory I didn't ask for. The couch where we used to binge shows, the stairs we argued on, the kitchen island where she once whispered, "I can't imagine my life without you." And now she couldn't even imagine I'd read. Her emails. I pulled out the printed copy, taped it to the mirror in our bedroom. Then I left a second note, just 3 words, scrolled below it. "You did this." Then I left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't take anything else. But I knew when she walked in and saw what I left behind. She'd finally feel what I'd felt for months. Powerless. I thought leaving that note, those 3 simple words scrolled beneath her email, would be the end of it. That she'd get the message, stew in the shame, maybe vanish into the arms of some other man who liked playing games as much as she did. But no, Callie wasn't the kind of person who let go quietly. She was the kind who rearranged the story in her head until she came out the victim. And she just realized her version of events was crumbling fast. So, she did what narcissists do when they feel the narrative slipping. She went public. It was Thursday afternoon when I saw her again. I was at work kneeling beside a busted vending machine in a hospital lobby trying to fix a jammed coil and pretending not to hear a toddler scream bloody murder nearby. My hands were greasy. My back ached. My phone was playing a podcast I wasn't even listening to, just white noise to keep my thoughts from spiraling. And then I heard her voice. Not soft, not uncertain, loud, panicked lull. I turned, already feeling my stomach twist. She stood there in heels that didn't match her dress. Eyeliner smudged like she'd been crying or wanted me to think she had. And her voice echoed through the sterile hallway like she was auditioning for a drama nobody asked for. "I just want to talk," she said, approaching fast. I stood slowly, wiping my hands on my shirt, trying not to draw attention, but it was too late. A nurse had already paused. A security guard raised an eyebrow, and the receptionist leaned halfway out of her chair like she was watching a soap opera unfold in real time. "Not here," I said through clenched teeth. But Callie wasn't interested in dignity. She was interested in damage control. "You think I'm the villain?" she snapped. "After everything I did for you? I supported you for years while you worked that stupid job, and now you're going to humiliate me." I felt the words punch through the air like knives. I could have responded. I could have screamed back, made a scene, listed every betrayal and every sleepless night. But instead, I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshots, and without a word showed them to her face. The email, her words, every lie, she froze. Color drained from her face. For a moment, I saw it. The flicker of fear, not fear of me, but of truth, of losing control, of not being able to spin her way out. And she tried again, softer this time. "I didn't mean any of that. You know how I get when I'm angry? I was just venting." "Vent to your therapist, Callie," I said, "not your lover." That did it. Her face twisted, the crowd watching in full force now. But I didn't care. I turned, walked back to the machine, picked up my toolkit like nothing had happened. I heard her storm off in heels that hit the tile like gunfire. It was over, or so I thought. That night, I got a message. Not from her, from someone else entirely. It was short, just a screenshot of another message from her sent to my younger cousin Dylan, a 25-year-old who once painted her garage for free. Lols, unraveling. "I might need a place to crash for a while. You still have that spare room, Winky?" Face. That was the moment it all clicked. Callie didn't just lie to me. She didn't just betray me emotionally. She was preparing to erase me entirely, replace me, one connection at a time. And the worst part, she thought I'd never know. But I did. And I wasn't staying silent anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was hurt. Those nerves had already gone numb, but because something in me had changed. I wasn't trying to understand her anymore. I wasn't replaying conversations or wondering where I failed. That part of me had been burned away. Now, I wanted the truth. All of it. I wanted her to know I had it. The next morning, I did something that would have terrified me weeks earlier. I drove back to our neighborhood, not to the house, but to Laurel's, Callie's sister. The one who'd always watched from the sidelines like she was waiting for things to collapse. She opened the door wearing a hoodie and no makeup, blinking like she couldn't believe I'd actually shown up. "I need to ask you something," I said, "and I need you to be honest." She didn't invite me in, just leaned against the frame and crossed her arms. "What did she tell you about Dylan?" I asked. Her eyes narrowed. "What happened?" "She's been messaging him, flirting, fishing for a place to land. She sent him a winking face." Laurel shook her. Head exhaled hard. "That explains why he called me last night." "He called you." "He said he got a message that felt off. Creepy even. Wanted to know if she was okay. He thought maybe she was drunk or spiraling." "But lol, he didn't reply to her." I felt my jaw clench. "She told him you were getting violent," Laurel added carefully. "That you were unstable and she was afraid to go home." There it was. Not just betrayal, character assassination. I wanted to scream, but instead I pulled out my phone and handed it to her. The screenshots, the email to Ronan, the message to Dylan, the picture of the duffel bag with her notes still taped to it. Laurel read in silence. No gasps, no denial, just slow comprehension. And then something shifted in her eyes. "She always blamed other people when she felt guilty," she murmured. "But this is another level." "Yeah," I said, "and I think she's not done." That same afternoon, I received an email. No subject line, no greeting, just a single link. It led to a Dropbox folder filled with screenshots. Bank transfers, text threads, a blurry photo of her and Ronan kissing outside of a bar nearly 4 weeks before she ever mentioned his party. The sender anonymous, but I knew who it was, Ronan. It wasn't guilt. It was self-preservation. He didn't want to go down with her, so he was throwing her under the bus before she had a chance to toss him first. And buried in the folder was the final nail in her coffin, a voice recording. Ronan laughing, saying, "If he finds out you cleaned the account before he moved out, he's going to lose it." Callie replied, "He won't. He's too soft. And even if he does, he'll just cry in a corner like always." I played it 3 times, not because I didn't believe it, because I wanted to remember exactly how she said it. That cold chuckle, that superiority in her voice, and then I knew exactly what I needed to do. I called my attorney, told him everything. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "You've got enough here to press for financial misconduct, emotional damages, and possibly even fraud, especially if that deceased bank stunt came with her name on it." "I'm not after money," I said. "I understand," he replied. "But you might still be owed something. And more importantly, this stops her from doing it to someone else." That hit me harder than anything because she would have done it again. Maybe not to Dylan. Maybe not next year. But eventually, Callie would have rebuilt the fantasy with another, quiet guy who made her feel superior. And I couldn't let that happen. So I gathered every file, every screenshot, every voice message, every timestamp. I built a digital fortress out of her own lies. And then I waited because the next time she tried to twist the truth, I'd be ready. It took exactly 11 days. That's how long it took for the weight of her lies to finally crush the version of reality she called me again, this time sobbing. Not fake tears, not weaponized emotion, just raw panic. "Everyone knows, Lel," she whispered through the phone. "Laurel won't return my calls. Dylan blocked me." Ronan sent my messages to his girlfriend. He was seeing someone else this whole time, apparently. He says I manipulated him. There was no anger in her voice anymore, no fire, just ashes. And I didn't say a word because I didn't need to. For once, my silence wasn't about fear or passivity. It was a choice. It was power. Then came the apology. It wasn't neat. It wasn't beautiful. Messy and drenched in guilt. She said things like, "I miss you and I don't know who I became. And I didn't think you'd ever leave." But the truth is, she was right about one thing. I used to be the guy who would have stayed, but not anymore. I ended the call gently. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just told her that I hoped she figured out why she kept destroying the very people who loved her. And then finally, I blocked her on everything, not out of hate, out of peace. It's been 6 months since that morning I walked out the front door without looking back. In that time, I moved to a smaller town where no one knows my name. I got a job fixing vending machines in high schools where kids still say thank you and smile when the candy doesn't get stuck. Laurel and I still talk sometimes, less about Callie, more about life. Turns out she was waiting for someone to call out her sister's behavior for years. And me, I'm finally learning how to exist outside someone else's shadow. I started taking walks without checking my phone, started cooking again. I even started journaling, not to vent, but to remember that I matter because I do. So, yeah, I lost a marriage, but I found something better myself. Thanks for watching. If you've ever experienced something similar or seen someone turn pain into power,